Hate Locked In, America's Most Dangerous Extremists in Prison. True crime documentary. The prison yard went silent in seconds. In a high-security federal prison, guards watched as a group of inmates froze in place, eyes locked on one man standing near the fence. He did not shout. He did not move fast. He simply raised his arm and made a small hand signal. That was all it took. Across the yard, white inmates shifted closer together. Tattoos flashed in the sunlight, swastikas, lightning bolts, numbers tied to hate. A signal had been sent. Something was about to happen. Moments later, violence exploded. A lone inmate was attacked near the weight area, beaten to the ground before guards could react. The assault was fast, planned, and brutal. When officers rushed in, the attackers dropped their weapons without fear. They knew what this meant. Solitary, lockdown, more time added to their sentences. They did not care. For them, prison was not the end of the fight. It was part of it. As alarms echoed through the yard, investigators would later realize this was not random violence. It was a message, and it came from deep inside a world most Americans never see. The hidden network of white supremacists and lone actor extremists living behind bars. But how did hate survive prison walls meant to stop it? And who was really in control? That answer begins years earlier. Long before the attack, the man who gave the signal had already made a name for himself. He was not loud. He did not rush into fights. He watched. He listened. He learned. He was serving time for a violent crime tied to white supremacist beliefs, inspired by real extremist movements in the United States. Like many before him, prison did not weaken his beliefs, it hardened them. Across America, prisons have held some of the most dangerous domestic extremists in history. Men like members of the Aryan Brotherhood, the Order, and newer lone actor extremists inspired by racist manifestos and online hate forums. Some were convicted for murders, others for bomb plots, armed robberies, or attacks meant to start a race war. Once inside prison, these men found something powerful: structure. White supremacist prison gangs offered protection, food, and safety in exchange for loyalty. In a place ruled by fear, that mattered. New inmates were tested. Some were pushed into fights. Others were slowly taught hate, one conversation at a time. Guards knew the signs, but stopping it was harder than it looked. Letters were written using coded language. Books were passed quietly. Symbols were hidden in simple sight. Even under strict rules, extremist ideas moved from cell to cell. Some inmates acted alone. These were the lone actors. Quiet men who believed violence was their duty, men inspired by real attackers like Timothy McVeigh, who carried out the Oklahoma City bombing before being executed in federal prison. Others admired prison-based extremists who gained power without ever leaving their cells. Federal investigators later confirmed that several white supremacist inmates continued to direct violence outside prison. They used family members, visitors, and secret messages to stay connected. In some cases, prison guards intercepted letters that spoke of targets, weapons, and future attacks. Still, prison life had its slow moments. Days passed with nothing but counts, meals, and long hours locked inside small concrete cells. Some inmates worked prison jobs, others lifted weights or read, but under the surface, tension never left. Hate groups watched each other closely. An insult could turn into bloodshed. A rumor could start a riot. Then came the crackdown. After years of violence linked to white supremacist gangs, federal prisons began placing known extremist leaders into special units. Communication was limited. Phone calls were monitored. Visits were watched. Some inmates were locked down for 23 hours a day. Officials hoped isolation would stop the spread. It didn't. The man in the prison yard attack had already adapted. He trained others to lead. He taught them how to avoid attention. He told them that prison was proof the system feared them. That message worked. On the day of the attack, everything moved exactly as planned. Guards restored order. The injured inmates survived.
Lockdown followed. Cells were searched. Weapons were found. Homemade blades carved from metal and plastic. Investigators traced the orders back to the same inmate who gave the signal. But when agents tried to question him, he smiled. He said nothing. What authorities did not yet know was that this was only the beginning. Evidence would soon show that plans were already in motion beyond the prison walls. Plans tied to men who believed their time behind bars was training, not punishment. And as night fell on the lockdown prison, a final message was quietly passed from cell to cell. The war, they believed, was far from over. The letter was found during a routine cell search. At first, it looked harmless, just a few pages written in neat handwriting, folded carefully and hidden inside a law book. But when investigators read it closely, their mood changed fast. The words were calm, almost polite, yet the message was clear. It spoke about loyalty, sacrifice, and preparing for the day of action. Names were written using numbers. Places were described without being named. It was a roadmap, not a rant. This letter did not come from the outside. It came from inside the prison. Federal agents now knew the truth. The attack in the yard was not just violence. It was part of a larger plan. The man who gave the signal was not acting alone. He was guiding others, using the prison itself as a base. This has happened before in real American prisons. In the 1980s and 1990s, the Aryan Brotherhood became one of the most feared prison gangs in the United States. Members were linked to murders both inside and outside prison walls. Leaders continued to give orders even while locked down. Some directed killings through coded letters and trusted messengers. Prison did not stop their power. It concentrated it.
The same pattern was now repeating. The inmate at the center of this case had studied those before him. He learned how earlier extremists survived isolation. He told younger inmates to stay quiet, to follow rules on the surface, and to wait. Time is on our side, he would say. That idea spread fast. Guards noticed changes. White supremacist tattoos appeared on inmates who never had them before. Groups ate together in silence. New prisoners were approached carefully, not rushed. Recruitment was slow and patient. That made it harder to detect. Not every extremist was part of a gang. Some were lone actors. These men did not trust groups. They believed violence should be carried out alone to avoid betrayal. Many were inspired by real attackers who acted by themselves and caused mass harm. Prison did not change their thinking. It gave them more time to plan. One real example that haunted investigators was the case of inmates who praised Timothy McVeigh years after his execution. McVeigh never joined a prison gang, yet his actions inspired others long after his death. His story became a warning. One person, acting alone, could change history. Inside prison, lone actors blended in easily. They avoided trouble. They read books. They exercised. But their minds stayed active. Some wrote long letters filled with hate. Others memorized violent manifestos. Guards knew these men were dangerous, but proving intent was hard. Then the phones became a problem. Even with monitored calls, some inmates learned how to speak without being clear. They used nicknames. They talked about projects and weather and family business. Investigators later confirmed that some of these calls were used to pass instructions to people outside prison. In several real cases across the U.S., white supremacist inmates managed to influence crimes on the streets. Family members unknowingly carried messages. Friends were pushed toward violence. The prison walls did not block the ideas. They only slowed them down. After the yard attack, pressure on prison staff grew intense. Cells were searched again, books were removed, mail was delayed, leaders were separated and moved to higher security units. The inmate who gave the signal was placed in near total isolation. Lights stayed on, conversations stopped, silence filled the cell. For weeks, nothing happened. This worried investigators more than violence. Silence meant waiting.
During this calm period, something else was discovered. A guard noticed a strange pattern. Certain inmates were requesting library books on the same days. Others were lining up for recreation at exact times. It looked random. It wasn't. These were signals. The extremist network had learned how to move without words. They used routine as communication. A simple choice, where to stand, when to walk, carried meaning. This was real and documented behavior seen in past prison extremist cases. Federal authorities now understood the threat clearly. Prison was not breaking these men, it was shaping them. The longer they stayed inside, the more disciplined they became. Then came the break. An inmate in protective custody asked to speak. His voice shook as he explained what he had seen. He talked about quiet meetings, about loyalty tests, about plans for after release. He said one name over and over, the same man who gave the yard signal. The informant said something chilling. "There's another date," he whispered. Investigators leaned in. The date was weeks away. It meant something big was coming, something planned far beyond the prison yard. As alarms quietly went up across agencies, one question remained unanswered. Was the next attack meant for inside the prison or the world outside? The transfer order came at dawn. Chains rattled as the inmate was pulled from his cell and moved through silent hallways. Guards surrounded him on all sides. No words were spoken. This was not routine. This was damage control. Federal authorities believed the date mentioned by the informant was real and close. Outside the prison, agents were already working. In past real cases across the United States, white supremacist extremists released from prison or guided from inside had carried out deadly acts. Investigators remembered how members of white supremacist groups once used prison time to build trust, plan, and train others. They also remembered lone actors who left prison more focused and more dangerous than when they entered. This time, they did not want to be late. Phones were monitored again. Visitor lists were reviewed. Letters sent months earlier were pulled from storage and reread with fresh eyes. Patterns began to appear. The same names, the same phrases, the same calm tone that hid violent meaning. One letter stood out. It spoke about clearing the path and finishing what others started. No targets were named, no weapons listed, but investigators knew this language. It matched words used in real domestic terror cases before deadly attacks. The inmate who wrote it still said nothing. Inside the prison, tension returned. White supremacist inmates noticed the extra searches. They saw leaders disappear into isolation. Some became angry. Others stayed calm. Calm was more dangerous. Calm meant discipline.
A fight broke out in another unit, drawing guards away. It looked random. Later, officials realized it was a distraction. While attention was elsewhere, a lone actor slipped a message into a trash bin meant for outside pickup. It was small, folded tight, easy to miss, but it was found. That single piece of paper confirmed the worst fear. Someone on the outside was waiting. Someone believed prison leaders were guiding them. Someone believed the fight was not over. This was not new. In real history, white supremacist prisoners have inspired followers without ever meeting them. Ideas passed from cell to street like fire. Investigators knew that even if one plan failed, belief could still push someone else to act alone. That was the hardest part. You can lock up a man. You cannot easily lock up an idea. As the date drew closer, agents increased pressure. The prison was placed on restricted movement. Recreation was canceled. Meals were delivered cell by cell. Every sound echoed. Every step felt heavy. Then came the call. A man outside prison had been stopped during a traffic check. In his car, police found extremist writings, prison-style codes, and a list of locations. He claimed he was acting alone. He said no one told him what to do. But the papers told a different story. The language matched prison letters. The phrases were the same. The hate was familiar. He had never met the inmate who inspired him, but he knew exactly who he was. The planned date was canceled, quietly. No headlines, no public warning. Authorities chose silence to avoid panic. Inside prison, the extremist leader was informed that all communication would now stop completely. For the first time, his face changed. It was not fear, it was anger. He had believed prison made him untouchable. He believed distance gave him power. Now, even silence had been taken from him. Days passed. The prison slowly returned to normal. Some inmates were transferred. Others were released months later under heavy watch. The lone actor outside was charged before he could act. To the public, nothing happened. But inside law enforcement, this case became a warning. Domestic extremism does not end at conviction. White supremacy does not fade with prison time. Lone actors do not always act alone, even when they think they do. Prison can be a cage or a classroom. As night fell again on the same prison yard where it all began, guards watched inmates walk in slow circles. No signals, no violence, just routine. But investigators knew better. Somewhere, someone was still listening. Someone was still learning. Someone was still waiting. Because in America's prisons, the doors may close, but the danger does not always stay locked inside. The prison looked calm again. Morning count was normal. Doors opened and closed on time. Inmates lined up for meals. On the surface, the danger seemed gone. The planned attack had been stopped. The leader was locked down. The lone actor outside was in custody. To most people, the story was finished. But for investigators, this was the most dangerous moment of all. They had seen this pattern before in real American cases, after Oklahoma City, after racially motivated prison murders, after disrupted plots tied to white supremacist networks. The quiet that follows a stopped attack is never peace, it is adjustment. Inside the prison, new leaders began to rise. They were not obvious, no loud speeches, no violent moves. They watched and learned from what went wrong. They told others to stay clean. No fights, no notes, no signs. Survival meant patience. This is how extremist belief survives prison time. Correctional officers received new training. They were taught to look beyond violence and watch behavior. Who stood next to who stopped talking when guards walked by, who suddenly changed routines. Prison intelligence units worked closely with federal agents, sharing details daily. Still, the system had limits. Prisons are built to control bodies, not beliefs. An inmate can be locked in a cell, but his mind remains free. Many white supremacist inmates continued to believe they were soldiers in a long war. Prison, to them, was proof that the system feared them. Some wrote journals filled with hate. Others memorized extremist texts. Lone actors especially turned inward. They no longer needed approval. They believed action was personal and sacred. Real history shows this danger clearly. Several domestic extremists who committed violence in the United States had spent time in prison before their attacks. Some came out quieter, more focused, more careful. Prison did not scare them. It trained them to wait. That truth forced hard questions. Is isolation enough? Does longer time help? Can hate be undone once it becomes identity? In this case, officials chose a new path. Some inmates were placed in intervention programs. Counselors tried to challenge extremist thinking, not with force, but with questions. Progress was slow. Many refused to speak. Some laughed, but a few listened. Outside the prison, the lone actor's trial revealed more details. He admitted he never spoke directly to any leader. He said he learned everything from letters, books, and ideas passed online before prison restrictions tightened. The prison extremist never told him to act. He simply inspired him. That scared prosecutors the most. It meant no orders were needed. As months passed, the prison leader grew older behind concrete walls. His power faded, not because he changed,
but because time changed everything around him. Younger inmates moved on, transfers broke networks, silence became permanent. Yet, the idea remained. White supremacy did not disappear. Lone actors still existed. New names replaced old ones. Hate adapted to pressure like it always had. This case became a lesson taught quietly inside law enforcement circles. It showed that domestic extremism behind bars is not loud chaos. It is slow, patient, and dangerous. It grows in shadows and feeds on anger, fear, and belonging. For the public, the prison stayed invisible.
No headlines, no breaking news, just another locked building behind fences. But for those who worked the case, one truth remained clear. Stopping one attack does not end the threat. Locking one man does not stop an idea. As the lights dimmed in the prison for night count, an officer paused at a cell door. Inside, an inmate sat on his bunk, reading quietly. No tattoos were visible. No anger showed on his face. But the officer had learned not to judge by appearances, because behind bars, the most dangerous weapon is not a knife or a fist, it is belief. This story did not end with a headline or a body count, and that may be the most unsettling part of all. Domestic extremism behind bars often survives in silence, waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right spark. And the question we are left with is simple, but frightening. If prison cannot fully stop hate, where does the fight truly end?